Good morning and happy Earth Week. Welcome to this Sunday service of the Unitarian Society of New Haven. My name is Rich Stockton. I'm the chair of the worship committee and your worship associate today. If you're joining us for the first time, we're so glad you chose to spend this time with us. We meet electronically for now, but we know we will be together again in person soon. This is a congregation that believes Black lives matter, that every person has the right to affirm their own gender identity, that all people are inherently worthy. We acknowledge that our sanctuary sits on the land traditionally that of the Quinnipiac and other Native people. As a congregation, we seek to heal the wounds of the past and present in ongoing work of reconciliation. All of us are imperfect, but we're here to drop our defenses and trust that what happens in worship is powerful and life-giving. Together, we affirm that this day and our being together can make each of us braver, more compassionate, and wiser than when we woke up this morning. Please join in saying the words for lighting our chalice, the symbol of Unitarian Universalism. Like the first hint of green, let us be renewed by the warmth of the sun's rays and ready to emerge with a new energy. We light this chalice to bring a glimmer of that warmth into our space.
I am reading this morning from Earth Prayers from Around the World, 1991. We join the earth. We join with the earth and with each other to bring new life to the land, to restore the waters, to refresh the air. We join with the earth and with each other to renew the forests, to care for the plants, to protect the creatures. We join with the earth and with each other to celebrate the seas, to rejoice in the sunlight, to sing the songs of the stars. We join with the earth and with each other to create the human community, to promote justice and peace, to remember our children. We join with the earth and with each other. We join together as many and diverse expressions of one loving mystery for the healing of the earth and the renewal of all life. I'm reading this morning from Touch the Earth, a self-portrait of Indian existence, compiled by T.C. McLuhan. Born in 1868, Chief Luther Standing Bear spent his early years on the plains of Nebraska and South Dakota. At the age of 11, he was one of the first students to enroll at the Indian School at Carlisle, Pennsylvania, which was established in 1879. After 4 years at the school, he became a teacher and taught at the Rosebud Reservation in South Dakota. He joined Buffalo Bill's Wild West show as an interpreter in 1898 and spent his later years writing and lecturing. In his statement, Chief Joseph Standing Bear speaks of the Lakota, which is the tribal name of the western bands of Plains people now known as the Sioux. The Lakota was a true naturalist, a lover of nature. He loved the earth and all things of the earth, the attachment growing with age. The old people came literally to love the soil, and they sat or reclined on the ground with a feeling of being close to a mothering power. It was good for the skin to touch the earth, and the old people liked to remove their moccasins and walk with bare feet on the sacred earth. Their teepees were built upon the earth, and their altars were made of earth. The birds that flew in the air came to rest upon the earth, and it was the final abiding place of all things that lived and grew. The soil was soothing, strengthening, cleansing, and healing. That is why the old Indian still sits upon the earth instead of propping himself up and away from its life-giving forces. For him, to sit or lie upon the ground is to be able to think more deeply and to feel more keenly. He can see more clearly into the mysteries of life and come closer in kinship to other lives about him. Kinship with all creatures of the earth, sky, and water was a real and active principle. For the animal and bird world, there existed a brotherly feeling that kept the Lakota safe among them. And so close did some of the Lakotas come to their feathered and furred friends that in true brotherhood, they spoke a common tongue. The old Lakota was wise. He knew that man's heart away from nature becomes hard. He knew that lack of respect for growing, living things soon led to lack of respect for humans too. So he kept his youth close to its softening influence.
Social justice work has long been a foundation of Unitarian Universalism. For some of us, it is the most profound practice of our faith. In the words of James Luther Adams, right attitudes are never sufficient alone. They must find embodiment. Each week, we make time during our service to lift up groups within our congregation who are meeting the world's challenges, not with indifference, but with action. This morning, we will hear from Judy Belleval on behalf of Green Sanctuary.
Hi, my name is Judy Belleval. I joined the Green Sanctuary Committee over 10 years ago because of my love and concern for the life with which we share our great blue planet. During this difficult time of COVID-19, I believe many of us, even those who don't normally spend a great deal of time outdoors, are finding solace and renewal in nature, experiencing the wonder and Waldeinsamkeit of forests, trees, ponds, and streams. A few weeks ago, while walking on the southern Cheshire section of the Farmington Canal Trail, we were puzzled by what sounded like a raucous flock of geese or ducks, but there were none in sight. It wasn't ducks or geese or birds of any kind. It was the sound of calling wood frogs engaged in their spring fling mating. How wonderful and exciting to hear and see things we normally would have missed. I guess physical distancing has some benefits. Wood frogs spend most of their lives in the woods, as their name implies, so we don't get to see them or hear them very often. They depend on vernal pools to mate and can survive as far north as the Arctic Circle. We later learned that their numbers in Connecticut are declining. Global warming and habitat loss could be contributing to their decline. There are other causes as well, for which I will not go into now. Whatever the reason, our consuming culture is leading us to precipitous declines, not only in amphibians like the wood frog, but also in insects, birds, and other animals and plants which share this earth with us and which are critical members of our interdependent web of life. We cannot survive without them. Douglas Tallamy, a professor in the Department of Entomology and Wildlife Ecology at the University of Delaware and the focus of an April 2020 article in Smithsonian Magazine, has estimated there has been a 45% decline in arthropods, chiefly insects, and calls that decline an ecological crisis. Edward O. Wilson, the great naturalist, has stressed the importance of the invertebrates as well. This is a quote from E.O. Wilson in 1987. If invertebrates were to disappear, I doubt that the human species could last more than a few months. Most of the fishes, amphibians, birds, and mammals would crash to extinction about the same time. Next would go the bulk of flowering plants, and with them the physical structure of the majority of forests and other terrestrial habitats of the world. We can and need to change how we treat the planet. Rachel Carson in 1962, her advice is once again relevant in 2020. This is what Rachel Carson said. We now stand where two roads diverge, but unlike the roads in Robert Frost's familiar poem, they are not equally fair. The road we have long been traveling is deceptively easy, a smooth superhighway on which we progress with great speed, but at its end lies disaster. The other fork of the road, the one less traveled by, offers our last, our only chance to reach a destination that assures the preservation of the earth. In light of all these warnings, there are some things we can do to make our own yards more pollinator-friendly and ecologically beneficial. 1, get rid of all or part of your lawn. And any lawn that does remain, manage that lawn in a way that's more sustainable. Do not plant invasive plants and remove those already growing in your yard. Plant native pollinator-friendly plants. There are a bunch of websites online that can give you a list of the plants that would be best to plant in this part of the country, in Connecticut, and I'll flash those on the screen. Minimize or avoid insecticide use. Avoid the use of artificial fertilizers. Instead, use compost teas, etc. Build pollinator gardens, and support the purchase of open space where wildlife can thrive. You may want to read Tallamy's new book, Nature's Best Hope, a new approach to conservation that starts in your yard. I haven't seen the book, I haven't read it, but I hear it's really good. I'm hopeful that we will heed the warnings and make the needed changes so that next spring and all the future springs, our children, grandchildren, and great-great-great-grandchildren will all be able to walk in the woods and enjoy the sights and sounds of the forest. As a closing note, we invite you to join the Green Sanctuary Committee and help all of us choose Rachel Carson's Road Less Traveled By. Thank you.
I now invite you to join me in holding in our hearts the joy and sorrow of those around you, closing your eyes and going inward if you're comfortable doing so. Today, some woke with a sorrow so great they asked for the help of this community to carry it. Others woke with a joy so great it must be shared. I will now read some of the joys and sorrows that have been shared with our community. Greg Feely shares that his mother Shirley died on Wednesday at the age of 92 after a long illness. Bill Goward tells us that Helene Goward lost her battle with COVID-19 on April 15th. Her loss brings great sorrow to husband Bill, her children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. Please hold them in your hearts. Ann Summer wants to share that her father died peacefully at home at the end of March at the age of 95. We do have some joys. Bruce Levison celebrated his 85th birthday this past week. He is pleased to be still vertical, fully engaged in his life, and grateful for life with Ann. Dee Arneth would like to share the joy of celebrating her granddaughter Samantha's 18th birthday on April 21st. My heart is with her, she says, even though I'm not. Sophie Trukowski and Peter Schwartz are celebrating a joy and sharing a memory as they celebrate their wedding anniversary. Sophie and Peter were married at USNH by Reverend Wayne Chattee 41 years ago on April 21st. Emily McCabe shares her joy that her sister, Jessica, delivered 2 healthy babies on Thursday, April 16th. Brenna Reese and Landon Reed are both doing well. Emily looks forward to meeting them soon. And John Deming reports that George Deming is back in his group home as of Friday and is doing well after being hospitalized for COVID-19. And finally, Catlin Soderholm shares with us that a piece of her art has been chosen for inclusion in the upcoming annual student art exhibit at Housatonic Community College. For the joys and sorrows that haven't been spoken, but which remain in the silent sanctuaries of our hearts, we bear witness.
Universalist and Unitarian minister, Reverend Thomas Starr King, wrote in an 1863 sermon entitled Lessons from the Sierra Nevada, "I believe that if on every Sunday morning before going to church, we could be lifted to a mountain peak and see a horizon line of 600 miles enfolding the copious splendor of the light on such a varied expanse, or if we could look upon a square mile of flowers representing all the species with which the creative spirit embroiders a zone, or if we could be made to realize the distance of the earth from the sun, the light of which travels every morning 12 millions of miles a minute to feed and bless us, and which the force of gravitation pervades without intermission to hold our globe calmly in its orbit and on its poise. If we could fairly perceive through our outward senses 1 or 2 features of the constant order and glory of nature, our materialistic dullness would be broken. Surprise and joy would be awakened. We should feel that we live amid the play of infinite thought, and the devout spirit would be stimulated so potently that our hearts would naturally mount in praise and prayer. Won't you please join me in a moment of sung meditation? This is a round called the Web of Life. I will be singing it, and the round will be done by my mother, Ellen Greist, and my sister, Arjuna Greist. As you learn it, please sing with me. The web of life is all around us, lifts us up, and it surrounds us. We are one, though we are many, finding voice where there wasn't any. One earth home, one earth home. La telaraña de la vida está completa sin herida. Somos una voz unida, somos una gente querida, una tierra, una tierra. The web of life is all around us, lifts us up, and it surrounds us. We are one, though we are many, finding voice where there wasn't any. One earth home, one earth home. La telaraña de la vida está completa sin herida. Somos una voz unida, somos una gente querida, una tierra, una tierra. The web of life is all around us, lifts us up, and it surrounds us. We are one, though we are many, finding voice where there wasn't any. One earth home, one earth home. La telaraña de la vida está completa sin herida. Somos una voz unida, somos una gente querida, una tierra, una tierra, una tierra, una tierra, una tierra, una tierra.
Hi, this is Craig Machado, and I'm just giving you my testimonial this morning on behalf of the Stewardship Campaign. I returned to my religious roots, originally Christian and Presbyterian, in my early 30s when I was living in San Francisco. I was volunteering at a downtown drop-in coffee house run by a Presbyterian minister and her husband, who also directed an urban ministries program for marginalized people. Reverend Glenda, as we called her, also preached part-time at a small neighborhood church and asked me to consider attending. That is where I met my spouse of almost 40 years, Dick Haspany, and got involved in a struggling but lively church dedicated to social justice issues like empowering the poor and homeless, getting prostitutes off the streets, lobbying for affordable housing, and speaking out against U.S. involvement in El Salvador. At the same time, AIDS had begun to ravage the gay community, overwhelming social and medical services, and bringing out a lot of ugly prejudice and bigotry. Our little church stood firm. Reverend Glenda visited AIDS patients, did prayer vigils, and buried those whose families had rejected them. Along with our ruling elders, which are like Board of Trustees in the Unitarian Universalist denomination, she challenged the Presbyterian Church to fully accept and affirm gay people. This was the beginning of a long and painful fight within Presbyterian and other church Christian denominations to tear down walls of silence. In other words, if we ignore them, maybe they'll just go away. Or bring GLBT people into full membership. Well, you can maybe be members, but you cannot serve openly in any position of ministry. Thus, lying and hiding became tactics many LGBT people who wanted to do ministry adopted to stay in the church. Others quit in disgust or heartbreak. And others like myself started, albeit somewhat warily, advocating for full inclusion, including grassroots support with sympathetic pastors, lay leaders, and seminarians. By 1999, when Dick and I moved to Connecticut, I was really unchurched. The struggle for LGBT inclusion had worn me down, but Dick persevered within the Presbyterian denomination, and ultimately that church did vote to ordain openly LGBT people and extend full membership to all. But the cost was high. A lot of congregations left the denomination and many people were hurt. Dick and I had started visiting local churches in the New Haven area in an effort to build a supportive network for religious LGBT folks. And on one of those visits, we came to USNH. Enthralled with Reverend McTeague's preaching and the warm welcome of the congregation, I decided to stay. I really didn't know much about Unitarians at that point, although we had had a good friend in the Bay Area, a former Catholic, who ministered to a very small UU congregation in the Bay Area. He was a passionate preacher, a creative liturgist, and he saw a lot of connection between Christians and UUers, which he referred to often in his sermons. One of the aspects of being a convert UUer that I admired most was the cross-fertilization I saw at USNH. People from various religious traditions, or none at all, gathered to worship creatively, soulfully, but not dogmatically. There was respect for tradition, but also willingness to go beyond the confines of one true faith or creed. I also appreciated the denomination's strong commitment to LGBT people, which carries on to the present moment as we renew our welcoming congregation status. USNH has been my church home for almost 20 years. It's a good place to park yourself on Sunday. Spirited music and worship, stellar preaching, social outreach, unwavering advocacy for so many worthy causes, commitment to lifelong learning, and just plain fun. I am proud to be pledging to this great community, and I hope you are too. Thank you.
Dear friends, good morning. I'm Sally Connolly with the stewardship team. In the midst of this difficult and heartbreaking epidemic, it seems as if we are in a state of suspended animation, or perhaps just waiting for the next tragic news. However, as your stewardship team, we are focused on the future. We know that we will be physically together again and welcoming our new minister with joy and gratitude. We believe that we will emerge stronger and more resilient than ever, committed to our UU values, engaged in sustaining faith experiences, providing excellent religious education, uplifted by musical programs, and acting on our social justice principles. We need all of us, every single one of us, to pledge generously. We must emerge from this period stronger than ever and ready to take on all challenges ahead. Let's raise the funds we need. Let's be all in.
Good morning. I'm Sophie Twarkowski. We are hearing a lot about essential services that we all need and are very grateful to receive. This has me thinking about essential needs. What are they? For me, having the love and support of family and friends, water, food, my home, access to affordable health care, living in a community that cares about my safety, and yes, USNH. In some ways, the necessity of being mostly homebound for over a month now has provided me with the same reflection that I feel when I attend a Sunday service at USNH. It has been a time to be present and mindful. It's a time to center myself, to reflect on how I spend my days, engage with people I care about, and challenge myself to action, find opportunities to move beyond my own needs. USNH is my beloved community. It has been part of my transformative life journey for over 40 years. It's a faith community that I lean on and support both with my time and with my pledge. Both are needed. USNH is our community. We need every member's support. Now is the time to join together to be all in. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Becky Friedkin, and I want to share with you how much I have enjoyed working on the stewardship campaign this year, both because we have a terrific team, but also because I've been talking with many of you about money. Money touches every part of our lives. Every dollar we spend reflects our values. When we learn to use our resources, no matter how large or small, to both support our needs and support our values, that is empowering. Stewardship is about taking care of something we value and enabling it to grow. Stewards are caretakers with a forward vision. They hold something in trust and ensure it will be there in the future for the benefit of others. In pledging, we are coming together as a community to enthusiastically welcome our next settled minister to join us on our individual and collective journeys. Your financial commitment, whether in the tens of dollars or thousands of dollars, is important and valuable to this community, and it is gratefully received. Maya Angelou said, "I have found that, among its other benefits, giving liberates the soul of the giver. Tend to your souls in these troubled times. Please pledge today." Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Laura Patey, and this is my second year on the Stewardship Committee. These certainly have been challenging times for all of us. We're finding new ways to stay connected, worship together, and continue the work that we value and share. We also know that in order to keep USNH vibrant, we must focus on our financial health. We're approaching the end of our stewardship campaign, and while we're continually making progress toward our dual goals of raising $500,000 and having 100% participation, we are not there yet. To date, we've heard from about 75% of the members of USNH. We still have a ways to go and need everyone to participate in this collective effort to support this amazing community. Now is the time to demonstrate our faith in the future of USNH. We need your generosity and commitment. Please know that everyone is welcome at USNH, no matter your financial circumstances, and your pledge of any amount will help USNH reach our goal of 100% participation.
Good morning. I'm Dan Gelprin. We are nearly at the end of our stewardship drive, and we're still waiting to hear from 53 people. We need to wrap this up so that the management team can start making the budget. If you haven't yet pledged, please show your commitment to USNH by pledging today. We have an ambitious but necessary goal of $500,000 this year. Please support your wonderful community by pledging now. Thank you.
As a part of our Earth Day celebration, I wanted to bring you down to a place on my land where there is this large red oak tree. My neighbor, who's the tree warden for Bethany, estimates that this tree is something like 150 years old. It's a grand, grand tree, and I think a fitting place to sit and read a poem to you by Mary Oliver. If the rooster next door does not make too much noise, you'll hear me okay. So here goes. When I am among the trees. When I am among the trees, especially the willows and the honey locust, equally the beech, the oaks, and the pines, they give off such hints of gladness. I would almost say that they save me, and daily. I am so distant from the hope of myself, in which I have goodness and discernment, and never hurry through the world, but walk slowly and bow often. Around me the trees stir in their leaves and call out, "Stay a while." The light flows from their branches, and they call again. It's simple, they say, and you too have come into this world to do this, to go easy, to be filled with light, and to shine. Thanks for being a part of this today. Happy Earth Day. Bye now.
Good morning. We're 4 weeks into lockdown, and today I'm going to share some thoughts about COVID and climate and justice. The novel coronavirus pandemic has laid bare some of the more glaring problems of our society that climate activists have been talking about for years. And the issues of justice and injustice have jumped out in sharp relief. There are even direct connections between COVID and climate, like the fact that the melting permafrost is releasing giant viruses as much as 30,000 years old. Needless to say, humans have never been in contact with them before. Experiencing the spring, the incredibly early spring we've had this year, is different in the age of COVID. We can still take walks, we can work in our garden, but group activities are out. What kind of a cosmic joke is it that we are marking the 50th anniversary of Earth Day during a global lockdown? Now, all the youth-led rallies full of love, hope, anger, near despair, and incredible energy have all been funneled online, where we know in the age of Zoom, as we are experiencing, that we can do a lot, but we can't be outside feeling the sun or the rain or the breeze on our faces, hugging our friends, and standing together for a brighter tomorrow. That's one thing that our strange new world has encouraged, lots of creativity and thinking outside the box. If you can't march to the insurance companies in Hartford that are underwriting fossil fuel production, organize an online march and call in with music and graphics. If you can't hold a sing-along for the climate in person, put everyone in front of their computers and combine your voices virtually. Spoofs in the age of COVID and YouTube have led to a contagion of humor, and let's face it, we desperately need to laugh. One of my favorites is a reworking of the beautiful "We're All in This Together" anthem, From a Distance, that gives it a whole new meaning. Another is a beloved Fiddler on the Roof tune parodied as Mask Maker. Mask maker, make me a mask. Any design, please sew it fast. You ought to check it out. The pandemic has allowed many of us to slow down and really see our world more clearly, limited though our frame might be. While lying on the floor of my study doing some exercises, trying to stay in shape with the gym closed, I observed upside down our wacky pear tree in full bloom. That's what you see behind me. I say wacky because they'd lost so many limbs in past storms, and they were so Ichabod Crane looking that I'd actually suggested cutting them down. My husband disagreed, and he was right, as I marveled at their delicate beauty. I've also heard people say that they sometimes resented having to take their dog for a walk, but now it's the highlight of their day, as they pass others at the required physical distance and exchange the greetings that were often non-existent before the pandemic cast human interaction in a new light. Seeing groups of people move individually or in pairs along a street reminds me of the choreography, although it's spread out in this case, of that beloved move in contra dancing, the Hey for Four, in which two couples switch places through an elaborate set of moves to the right, to the left, to the right. I have a friend who sends me funny or moving photos, videos, or poems every day. The most amazing was a collection of 24 photos of trees growing in challenging circumstances, to say the least. Through rocks, on tiny outcroppings in the ocean, on a nurse log that birthed many more of its own kind, and more. Trees might put us in touch with nature better than any other living thing. I know that's true for me. And these days, we don't call them things anymore, but living beings who coexist in supportive communities, communicate with each other, and support each other when times are tough. Sometimes that's true of humans too, though often, alas, it's not. The pandemic has revealed both the best and the worst of humanity, as many others have already pointed out. It's also revealed the terrible divisions in our societies, where low-income folks and people of color are suffering disproportionately from COVID-19 in terms of illness and especially in the death count. For example, several weeks into the pandemic, while 10% of nutmeggers are African American, they are 16% of the fatalities. And the situation was even worse in some other parts of the country. It's like they have 2 strikes against them already. And guess what? You could say the exact same thing about the climate crisis. We know that the people who did the least to create the crisis are suffering first and worst from the impacts. That's people in low-lying communities and island nations, and poor people generally. And the generational crime is even more stark. I am so privileged to work on climate with young people mostly college age and 20-somethings, but high schoolers are passionately involved too, and climate leaders have even emerged among the under 10 set. That's one lesson for us older folks. Don't underestimate the youth. Climate scientists say we have until 2030, that's 10 years, to reduce the emission of global warming gases by half, enough to prevent irreversible climate chaos. Until this pandemic stopped the global economy cold, emissions were still going up. The young ones know they are facing a changed, diminished, and very scary world, but they face it with a fierce resolve. I love these young people with all my heart. I love their commitment, their love for each other, their welcoming elders like me into their bold, creative actions. But try as I might, being in my 70s, I can't truly feel the terror they feel at what the future, the near future and then the extended future, will bring. Sanna Weiser is Connecticut's own Greta Thunberg, the Swedish girl who kickstarted the global youth movement. Both speak truth to power. In a speech last December in Hartford, Sanna told political leaders, "I spend every day panicking about climate change, doing whatever I can to help combat it. But yet in your position of power, you continue to sit by and do nothing. But we're not waiting any longer. Stand up or step aside." I can still hear hundreds of children and teenagers at the Capitol echoing that phrase, yelling, "Stand up or step aside, stand up or step aside." There's a good lesson for a climate future in our current conditions, where we offhandedly say that we are locked down. Even though most of us have access to food, entertainment, communication with friends, families, and coworkers, and even the outdoors, many of us are chafing at our confinement. Imagine how people feel who are truly locked down in prisons and immigration detention centers around the country. I've been spending some time at honkathons lately, COVID-safe protests in our cars outside those facilities, or at the site of decision makers' places, either homes or workplaces, such as the ICE office, Immigration and Customs Enforcement in Hartford, or the governor's mansion. Protesters are calling for the release of almost all detainees so that their confinement doesn't become a death sentence. So many immigrants who have come or tried to come to the US are climate refugees, and their numbers are pretty much guaranteed to balloon as we encounter climatic tipping points that will increase desertification, sea level rise, and other disasters. How we treat the least among us is a good indication of how we might treat our fellow humans in even more dire straits. In Todd Miller's book, Storming the Wall, he writes about the hundreds of millions of climate refugees this century will see, and he talks about the two main responses to the climate emergency. One is climate security. That is, security for the wealthy and well-connected, who will arm themselves with weapons and technology and build walls to keep out the hordes of desperate earth dwellers seeking survival. The other response is climate justice, where humans do believe and act that we're all in this together and take steps to protect us all. One person who exemplifies this is Scott Warren, a member of No More Deaths, who was arrested for providing aid to two desperate migrants in Arizona near the Mexican border and faced 20 years in prison. After a second trial, he was acquitted, which provided a glimmer of hope and joy in a very dark time. I was part of a group of 10 women from Connecticut who spent time with a similar group, the Samaritans, providing aid to migrants in the Sonoran Desert last year. We've seen both of these responses to the pandemic. On the security side, people hoarding supplies, authorities cracking down on certain groups, and politicians playing the blame game. And on the justice side, mutual aid groups have popped up all over the country, including in New Haven and several other Connecticut cities. Volunteers are gathering and dispersing food, cleaning supplies, and cloth masks made by the hundreds at dining room tables like mine across the region. Supporters are sending cash to immigrant rights groups because their undocumented members are not eligible for unemployment or for insurance payments or for any federal money in the stimulus package. California has taken a wonderful step where state and private funds totaling $125 million will provide cash grants to immigrant individuals and families in need. Governor Gavin Newsom explained the rationale, saying, "We feel a deep sense of gratitude for people that are in fear of deportation, but are still addressing the essential needs of tens of millions of Californians in food production and other tasks." That's an example of climate justice. It's hard not to notice another benefit of the pandemic. A 95% drop in air travel and a huge drop in earthbound vehicle traffic means the skies are the clearest they've been since 9/11, almost 20 years ago. And I can bike down Whitney Avenue any time of day and have the road practically to myself. There's a potential political benefit as well. Young people in the Sunrise Movement calling for a Green New Deal over the past year were told there's no money to provide health care for all and good jobs in the green economy. These young activists always said we could do it. It's just a matter of calling forth the political will. Now we see that playing out. Trillions of dollars made available in just a month so far to address this pandemic. Why can't we spend the trillions of dollars needed to address the climate crisis? Now that we've seen what's possible, we can fight with even more clarity for what we need. Some politicians are calling for just that, but others, the most powerful, have found ways to tuck in hundreds of billions of dollars in slush money for fossil fuel CEOs and others, powerful people, from the stimulus package, making a joke out of our previous attempts to cut off the comparatively puny subsidies to the industry. These same powerful misleaders are demanding that we go back to business as usual before health experts say we can do so safely. We have to be in this for the long haul, just like the fight for climate sanity and climate justice is ongoing. Many of you know that Greta Thunberg became so depressed about the so-called leaders of the world not taking immediate and powerful action to address the climate crisis that she stopped eating, putting her life at risk, and likely permanently stunting her growth. She came out of it when she realized there was something she could do about it. And she began her solitary school strike for climate in 2018 outside the Parliament building in Stockholm, Sweden, which has since spread to millions around the world. Things sometimes seem so bleak that I could picture myself giving up, though I can't picture myself giving up eating. But here's the thing, tilting at windmills may seem like a useless thing to do. But working for a sacred cause, together with many other concerned and committed people with heart and mind and soul, isn't a bad way to go. I think it's definitely better than the alternative. Our seventh UU principle is respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. That's a spiritual take on climate writer and activist Naomi Klein's famous dictum, to change everything, we need everyone. We need the trees, the frogs, the insects, and all the humans. Because even though some humans ignore this fact and pursue climate security, not climate justice, we really are all in this together. Amen.
Hi, my name is Kristen Arnini, and I'm a member of the Green Sanctuary. And I have a story to share with you today on this Earth Day celebration time. I was backpacking in Wyoming and I was 26 years old. It was a 32-day National Outdoor Leadership School course. I went off by myself for a little sponge bath one afternoon, and as I was sitting by a stream, a kind of song or a chant came to me, or actually more like it came through me. I didn't know this song. I didn't know the words or the tune. I just opened my mouth and it came out. So I wanted to share it with you because it was kind of, for me, a spiritual experience that reminded me that the outdoors can be a sanctuary, a place of wisdom and a place that calls me home. And my hope is, in telling my story, that maybe you will this month share a story of your own with someone, and maybe it will call you to remember something you know, or maybe it will call you to take some action for an environmental cause or for an issue you believe in. Anyway, the words are, "From this earth I will take all the simple solid strength. From this stream I'll embrace all the healing Spirit's grace. From this mountain I will know all endurance I have, and so from this earth I will take all the simple solid strength." And the tune that came, I don't have much of a voice, but I'll sing it for you, is this. From this earth I will take all the simple solid strength. From this stream I'll embrace all the healing Spirit's grace. From this mountain I will know all endurance I have, and so from this earth I will take all the simple solid strength. Maybe we'll sing it together some Earth Day, another year in the sanctuary. Thanks for listening to my story, and go well. Bye now.
Though below me I feel no motion, standing on these mountains and plains, far away from the rolling ocean, still my dry land heart can say, I've been sailing all my life now, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat. Sun my sail and moon my rudder, as I ply the starry sea, leaning over the edge in wonder, casting questions into the deep, drifting here with my ship's companions, all we kindred pilgrim souls, making our way by the lights of the heavens in the beautiful blue boat. I give thanks to the waves upholding me, hail the great winds urging me on, greet the infinite sea before me, sing the sky my sailor song. I was born upon the fathoms, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat.
Please join me
in the words for the extinguishing of our chalice. We extinguish this chalice, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we hold in our hearts until we are together again.
We travel together, passengers on a little spaceship, dependent upon its vulnerable reserves of air and soil, all committed for our safety to its security and peace, preserved from annihilation only by the care, the work, and I will say the love we give our fragile craft. We cannot maintain it half fortunate, half miserable, half confident, half despairing, half slave to the ancient enemies of man, half free in a liberation of resources undreamed of until this day. No craft, no crew can travel safely with such vast contradictions. On their resolution depends the survival of us all. Adlai Stevenson, 1965.